Alrighty, here we go. Shelter FootyCast live from BackChat Studios. We are here. Mark Reddings, Will Schofield. We're going to take you through a round 12 preview on this Thursday. G'day, Skeet. How are you?
Scully going brilliantly. Of course, not as many games as normal because the buys are starting to take effect. But, yeah, a bit to get our teeth into on what's been another big week in footy.
It has. It's a huge week of footy coming up. If we look at some of the matchups coming, I think it's going to be a great week of watching. That's the Southern River Band playing in the background there. The lads out of Thornley. Very, very good stuff. I'd love to see Skeet and his Julius Marlowe's and the Slacks down in the front row of the mosh pit at the Southern River Band. How'd you go down there, do you reckon?
I'm a man of the people. That's how I would describe myself. I can mix with the high flyers and also with others. So, no, I'm very comfortable just mixing and matching Scully. I'm not sure you could do that as well, but I think I'm quite comfortable being able to adapt.
Very good, Skeet. The man of the people. It's a West Australian theme if you are just getting here. If you just found us newly here on the Shelter FootyCast, we'll go through the Eagles, the Dockers, usually all other 7 matchups, but we're going to do the other 4 matchups with the bye coming up. You can find us on socials, Shelter FootyCast. You can find us on YouTube Shelter FootyCast or BackChat. You'll find us there. Maybe you could actually search for Man of the People and Mark Redding's head will just pop up on YouTube right there.
Yeah.
This is all thanks to Shelter, Skeet.
We love Shelter and, of course, this magnificent fridge, which hasn't been opened since we've started this FootyCast, but it's going to end up at some stage during the course of the year, perhaps around September when we get close to that spring in the air feeling. We'll might just crack one open first thing.
Very good. It'll be a good start to the morning. We do record this in the morning. I'm not going to pretend that this is night time, so that's why we're not having one. If it was night time, I think we'd crack a couple, but just wanted to keep it under wraps for the rest of the day.
Yeah, but good product, by the way. I love it.
Very good. There's a little event happening on Friday, this Friday, the 3rd of June, 5 p.m. at the Wembley. It's a beer release. Shelter times the Wembley Hotel. Switchback IPL. Can you go on? You have a laugh. Go.
Switchback IPL. I'm just laughing after about 4 of those. I'd like you to try and repeat that 3 times in a row, Scully. But Switchback IPL is a new product which you're going to get a piece of that, I'm sure, on Friday.
You coming down?
Can't get there Friday. I've got some radio commitments to call a game of footy between the Bulldogs and Geelong, which I've been given a late call up, but I'm a bit antsy about that because I'd rather be having one with you.
Well, it's official. Mark Redding's credit card will be on the bar on Friday night. We'll see you there. The BackChat crew will be down there, as will the boys from Shelter. It'll be great to see you there. There's free entry, meat raffles. Anyone can come down. It'll be good to see you there. And we can maybe listen to Skeet calling the footy over the radio or something.
Yeah, Torre Butchers, of course. Love the meat raffles. It's the old style down the pub on a Friday and get amongst it. Great spot, the Wembley. Been there a few weeks ago. It's a ripping spot to watch the footy and have a drink.
Very good. So let's get into it. The big moment of this week has been the mid-season draft. So I'll throw something at you. Maybe we can have a little bit of a review of the mid-season draft. But after that, I want to talk about whether we should be having this mid-season draft and whether or not we want a trade period instead. I've got some views on that. But a bit of a review from last night's mid-season draft. West Coast and Freo take a player each. Jai Cully, we spoke to him on the radio last night.
Yeah, 193 centimetres, a goal-kicking mid, as he's been described by the Dandenong Stingrays. And we spoke to him, he's a very down-to-earth, knockabout sort of ochre fella who works with a charcoal chicken over there in Victoria. But he's coming across with the aim to get a game of footy. And in many ways, it's great for a club like the Eagles who are going through a really difficult time. It's a bit of a good news story. Haven't had too many of those in the past 3 months. So he comes across with good raps because there were a lot of people suggesting he'd be taken in the national draft in any case. So
maybe a top tenner. So they get early access to that. Do you think he comes in and has the opportunity to make an impact immediately?
Can I be honest? Haven't seen him play. Yeah. So I don't know. But obviously if he's been taken as the number 1 pick, albeit it's not like the end of season draft where you're talking about, elite teenagers that are looking to, justify the number 1 selection or number 2 selection. The guarantees aren't high here with the players you select. I think you've got to be honest there. But it's a nice chance for West Coast to build their list through the midfield. And they had 1 selection that they used. They passed on another. So did Fremantle. Had 2 but passed on 1. And their pickup was a great story. Speaking of footy stories that warm the heart, Sebet Kuek, who is originally, he's got Sudanese parents but born in a Kenyan refugee camp, came out to Australia, then to Perth, obviously, product of the Ellenbrook Junior Football Club. and he's now developing in the WAFL, as it turns out, into a really athletic, exciting forward in the competition.
You've seen him play, haven't you? I haven't seen him play. What sort of...
He can jump. He can jump really well. He's got that athleticism, has got no weight on him in terms of bulk or size, but that's not to be unexpected. I mean, given his background, given what he does out on the footy field, but he's got that excitement factor. I think he's kicked 15 goals in 6 games.
Okay.
For East Perth.
So he can play.
So he can play. And he's been, some of the highlights I looked at last night, terrific. But one of the most exciting moments, one of the feel-good moments of the past 24 hours was at East Perth training last night. All the coaches held back the news that Seb had been picked up, and then they told the playing group, and he's obviously a popular character because they came from everywhere, every squad member, and just mobbed this young bloke. It was really good vision. If you get the chance to have a look, East Perth did a terrific job just getting that filmed, getting his reaction, even though you couldn't see him because he was swamped. But it was a really nice touch.
I've got to say, being around footy clubs for a long time, that doesn't happen unless he's a very, really popular guy. Like, someone gets picked up and, he's not one of the lads. They give him a pat in the back and a shake in the hand. But it was genuine scenes down at East Perth last night. I saw it. It was great to watch. A couple of other notables around the league. Callan Dawson goes number 2 to North Melbourne. He's a key defender. I think he's got the opportunity to make an impact. Wade Dirksen from Peel Thunder goes to GWS. He goes to a club that they're dearth of key position prospects. They've got Jesse Hogan and Harry Himmelberg, but I think he can fit into a GWS side. He's played for Peel. You've seen him play. Can play as well. He's a key position, contested marking player.
Absolutely. I saw him kick, I think, 3 or 4 goals against West Perth earlier this season. So he's got something, and it's great for him. But you also wonder, Peel Thunder having dragged him down from the Northern Territory to play some footy with, of course, the Dockers having their eye on him. Look, he gets his chance, which is what he was eventually hoping for. But Peel Thunder, you feel for a bit for them, a bit for East Fremantle, those clubs that have been affected. But this is the new way of going about AFL/footy in 2022.
Bryn Teakle, you speak of at East Fremantle, he goes to Port Adelaide as a ruckman, and I think he's got an opportunity to impact there. And Sam Durden at Carlton, a former first-round draft pick, a top 20 draft pick at North Melbourne. He plays 21 games there a few years ago, goes back to the VFL, plays well. He's a key defender. I think he's got a chance to debut as early as the first game Carlton plays. So they've got the bye this week. Next week, he could come straight back in. They've lost Wiedering. There's no Marchbank. There's no Mitch McGovern. They lost Liam Jones at the start of the year. They don't have a key defender. So I think he's got a real opportunity to impact immediately. Just very quickly, on the draft v trade issue, because of a guy like Bryn Teakle and a guy like Wade Dirksen, these waffle clubs are developing these players. It's all good and well to lose them at the start of the year, but East Freo, of course, lose Luke Stranatica, another ruckman, at the start of the year. Hugh Dixon, sort of.
Yep.
These clubs get $10,000 in mid-season draft when they lose these players. $10,000 does nothing for them in the middle of the year. East Freo sit on top of the ladder in the waffle. They get a $10,000 payment. You can't go and buy another player because they're all playing for other clubs. So
exactly. It's a difficult situation, and $10,000, it might just enhance the bottom line, but in terms of what you're trying to achieve, and East Fremantle have been in the doldrums for a long, long time. So they're top of the table, despite what you just mentioned with those player losses and Tom Joyce, Stranatica, Dixon, and now Teakle. It's going to test Billy Monahan, but I think if they've got the process right and they've got the squad mentality, that it'll still work out for them. But you're right, the compensation seems a bit skinny. One other name I'd like to throw in there, Will Hayes is going to Carlton, the last live pick in the draft. Now, most morning he's up at 3:15 doing track work at Flemington as part of the Lindsay Park operations there, the Hayes Consortium. So it's an interesting career change or life-changing moment for him going from that to going to a footy club at, say, 8 o'clock, 9 o'clock. So
it's a sleep-in.
It's a sleep-in, but it's also, it's huge. And look, he'd never deny anyone advancing in their careers, which is what this is. But the process behind it, and you mentioned the waffle clubs, compensation, that is one that I think needs to be examined a bit closer.
Finally, I think this should be a trade period. I think it should be a mid-season trade period, not a draft period, because we need to let the state leagues develop their players. We're completely gutting the state league of the best players. Clubs are just using it as early access, like West Coast have done with Jai Cully, to top 10 picks for next year. So let them develop, let them play in the junior leagues, and make a trade period. If clubs are going really well on the injury front, let them trade. Let them trade for picks. Let them trade for players. That's how you fill the injury spots. All right, we're going to move on. West Coast West Coast and Fremantle previews. Big part of this show on the Shelter Footy Cast. Let's go to Freo first. A big game. Another big game for Freo. They play Brisbane at Optus Stadium, 3:20 on Sunday. Second v third on the ladder. How do you see this one playing out?
Well, it's an interesting game, isn't it? Because Brisbane, their attacking weapons are so well known, and Fremantle's defensive capabilities make them the best in the competition in that department.
They're number one at each end. So number one scoring offense in Brisbane, number one defense in Fremantle. What wins out though? Does a better defense beat a better offense, or is it the other way around?
Well, I think historically, particularly the back end of the season, you'd rather have a better defence. That's defence wins matches in tight contests. You'd rather have a better team that can defend as opposed to maybe score and go missing. We saw that even going back 20, 30 years ago. Geelong, going back in the early 90s, had the best defensive team going around.
Yeah.
But the West Coast Eagles had the best defensive group, and that's what happened going back all those years. But yeah, it's a lovely matchup between the two. And Brisbane sort of come across, not under the radar, but given what Fremantle achieved last week, the bandwagon's full again. You haven't left the band, never did, but I have to say that there's the flag mantles come out again, and there's all sorts of talk. Really good win. I suppose backing it up against a quality team is going to be the next test.
There's always a seat on the train and the bus for you, mate. You can, I know you've been lagging along. You caught an Uber to try and catch up at the bus stop, and then you're trying to get on the next train stop. Mate, there is available seats, but they are filling up quick. That is right. Flag mantle's back. Some lists and selection news. Hugh McCluggage will probably return for Brisbane. He needs to get through training today. And Nat Fyfe, he returns via the waffle. We won't see him at AFL level. Josh Tracy, he kicked 3 goals in the waffle, so he's an option to replace Taberner if Taberner doesn't get up, but we're thinking Taberner probably plays.
And if he doesn't, I saw Josh last week against Claremont down in Peel, couldn't take a mark to save himself in the first half, but he was getting his hands on it, just couldn't quite clunk them. And the second half, he was getting a bit better service, took a couple of marks, but he's kicking from long range. He's got probably, dare I say it, the best set routine I've seen at Fremantle. He's a very good set shot from long range. Has a beautiful technique. Kicked 3 goals from 40 plus metres, and he's got that physical presence that I think you're waiting for him to take that next step in his career, and hopefully that comes sooner rather than later.
Even better than Fifey's. His set shot routine.
Come on, cheap shot.
I played with him in his first waffle game against Claremont as well. He kicked 5 goals in the first quarter. He had 4 contested marks. Right. So I just, the moment I saw that, I was playing in the game. I just said, this kid is a star. Play him every week. Look, he hasn't reached the consistency that's required at AFL level, but that's okay. He's a young developing key forward. They've got a good one in Josh Tracy, and whether he plays or not this weekend, who knows? The last bit I wanted to touch on was Lachie Neale to face his old side. He's missed the last couple of chances to play against Fremantle. There's no lasting ill effects, Fremantle, Brisbane. I mean, that happened long enough for him to win a Brownlow at Brisbane and continue along his merry way.
No, I mean, you think of it like players swapping clubs, and we still have this notion that if Chris Judd, when he went from West Coast to Carlton, that we boo him when he comes back. When players change clubs nowadays, we shouldn't go back to the 1970s and 1980s. I mean, NRL clubs, they already know who's playing. Adam Reynolds knew in the grand final he's playing for the Brisbane Broncos this year after lining up for goal for South Sydney to try and win the premiership. So we're a little bit behind in that sense. So no ill feeling towards Lachie Neale. But what we will have to look out for is that the job that the Dockers did in the second half on Oliver at the MCG last week, Clayton Oliver, by James Aish in this case. Will they do the same for Lachie Neale, who picked up 39 touches against the Giants last week? We know he's going to get 30 plus, but you try to really rein that in as opposed to, well, he's going to get it anyway.
They should. Teams don't do it anymore. We spoke about it on Monday, but they don't do it. They should. Lachie Neale's their best player. If you shut down Lachie Neale, they have to beat you with their other players. Now, they've got other players. They've got Zorko. They've got McCluggage potentially returning this week. They've got other guys, Lions. They've got other guys that can beat you, but if you get beaten by what you know, it was a Ross Lyon thing. Don't get beaten by what you know, right? So make sure you prepare. Make sure you try and take the best out of the opposition. I think they should, but I don't think they will. All right, let's go on to who wins.
I've actually tipped the Lions here, which I know will go against the grain, against everything you are believing at the moment. But I tipped the Brisbane Lions to win the premiership, so I have to stay true to them at this point. Their form's been a little bit iffy. They got jumped by the Giants. The Hawks beat them. Adelaide, they were so-so for a bit. So they're not in great form. Okay. But I just think their goal-kicking potential is pretty good.
Okay, I'll go Fremantle just to take you on, mate. But I'm a bit more worried about Brisbane than I was Melbourne last week. I know that's weird, but I think Brisbane's going to be up for the fight. Eagles v Adelaide, Saturday, 11:45 a.m. Adelaide Oval. It's going to be an early one here on Saturday for Eagles fans. It's a big game for West Coast. I know that's hard to say, but they've got an opportunity to beat a side. They haven't done that since Collingwood. They've won one game. Adelaide's not flying. They're at home. West Coast have traditionally played well at Adelaide Oval. I think they'll like the opportunity to get out of Perth right now. They've been under the pump a lot. How do you see this one playing out?
Well, I've got to be honest with you. West Coast, North Melbourne, where they sit, I think 5 or 6 goals at least behind the rest of the competition.
Yeah.
So that's unfortunately where it sits. Adelaide, they get Tex Walker back into the side, of course, from health and safety protocols. He's had a pretty good season, 32 years of age. He's still a power forward in this competition. So, look, Adelaide, after showing some signs during the year, but they're on a rebuild, but they certainly aren't heading north steeply, but they're showing enough for me to sense that they'll take care of the Eagles.
There's been some murmurings this week that Taylor Walker could potentially be on the market, potentially again for a West Australian team, not West Coast, the Fremantle Dockers. I don't know if I see that as a good move for the Fremantle Dockers, taking on a Taylor Walker. It goes against how they've built the list over the last 5 years. They've made some mistakes in the past with key forwards, especially McCarthy, Jesse Hogan, to name a couple. I think Taylor Walker, not saying that he's like those players or anything like that, but I think that could, you'd have to give something to get something there, and I don't think that's the right move for the Freo Dockers.
Not sure they'd have to give up too much given he's out of contract.
Captain of the club.
But he's no longer captain. Yeah, I don't know. Look, I've been a great player, but I agree with you. I wouldn't be jumping into Tex Walker despite what the likes of Paul Hazelby and others are saying. I don't see that as being a necessity for them to take the next step. He's been great for Adelaide. He wants to stay there. I don't see the reason to get him, particularly if you've invested in Jai Amos. He's out for the rest of the season primarily. You've still got a Taberner. Lob might be the one that actually disappears at the end of this season. I think he's more likely to go. And therefore,
they may need to replace that though, right?
That's true, but yeah, that's for later days.
West Coast, Adelaide, back on that game. Shannon Hearn should return from a calf. Jeremy McGovern's under a cloud with a back, but I think he plays. Hugh Dixon was quite good in the waffle this week, kicked 3 goals. I've really liked Hugh Dixon at AFL level. Paddy Naish was back there as well, played a first half, had 21 touches in a half, and then had to come to Optus Stadium to be the medical sub. That identifies still. The West Coast Eagles are still in an injury crisis. Yes, they have Elliot Yeo, Dom Sheed come back in the waffle, but they're not playing this week. They still are struggling to get a team on the park. They really are. There's been a lot of talk this week about the excuses are over. I don't think they are. I don't think because we're midway through the year, we stop giving West Coast a pass. They've still got a shocking injury list. You look at some teams around the comp and they're lucky to have 2 or 3 players out. West Coast have got 15 blokes on their injury list still. They don't have a full team to pick from. That's why they are 6 goals behind the rest of the competition. And if we go to who's going to win this and why, I think Adelaide win it. And why? West Coast just don't have the cattle. And you can say what you like about premiership players being on the list still and playing. They haven't played enough footy together. They're not fit enough, and they're not going to get a win. I pick the Adelaide Crows.
Yeah, well surmised, and you're right. And I guess the question at some point is the injuries that the Eagles have. Is there anything to do with their strength and conditioning? Is there something that can be pinpointed, or this is just a cumulative batch of bad luck?
Oh, well, I'd find it hard to believe it's strength and conditioning, given that it's the same team that's been there for the last 10 years. Effectively, there's not too many new names in that side of the building. I know that for a fact. You don't forget how to prepare a team.
So just bad luck for the whole season.
Absolutely.
The worst luck that they've had, since you've been at the club.
I don't think they've changed much in that department. So to me, that says that's not where the trouble lies. But anyway, that's it. We both pick Adelaide.
True.
I take Freo. So I take Freo. You take Brisbane.
I've taken Brisbane. I've taken the hard option. You've taken the favourites.
There we go. You are on the Shelter FootyCast. Dan's getting little bit trigger happy on the music there. I know we like the Southern River boys, but I just wanted to get my nice credit in for the Shelter FootyCast.
Absolutely.
And the beers there. Let's go through the rest of the matchups. There's not many because of the bye rounds. Bulldogs v Geelong Friday night. Going to be a cracking game. There's a few of these this week. I think Freo Brisbane's a great game, but Bulldogs v Geelong, 5:50 here in Perth. Gary Rowan, Reece Stanley potentially returning for Geelong. They may get some numbers back. And Bailey Smith returns for the Western Bulldogs. What about this game? I think it's a cracking matchup.
Absolutely. And you just sense under the roof it's going to be a game between the Bulldogs and their run and carry in the midfield, which we saw at close quarters at Optus Stadium against the Eagles. That's 16 individual goal kickers. So they
Does that equal the all-time
has
record?
to be close to it, doesn't it? Bailey Smith is massive because he is a gun. He had illness last week, but if he returns anywhere near his best, I think they can really stretch Geelong. I think Aaron Norton, outstanding. I like Wakeman in attack. He just gives them that zip and that little small forward feel. We know that Jamara Ugle-Hagan kicked 6 in the VFL. He's just building towards hopefully something substantial in the near future, but they've been able to buy their time with him.
Yeah, they have. I mean, he's a number one draft pick, due to some concessions and that sort of stuff. And he was, I guess there's always a lot of pressure on number one draft picks, right? They get that tag that they're meant to be something potentially more than they are. So he's going to take time to develop. Yeah, he kicked 6 goals in the VFL, but he doesn't return. I think Western Bulldogs at Marvel are a much better outcome for them than going down to Cardinia Park and down the highway.
It changes your selection.
Absolutely.
No question. I mean, they are a team that play that fast ground really well. They're still not playing their best footy, but what we saw last weekend against the Eagles, I mean, bear in mind the opposition that was put up in the second half, but they've got a lot of the pieces that can really trouble sides, including Geelong this season. Heard Joel Selwood only 24 hours ago or less say he might play on next year. Paddy Dangerfield's been kept in cotton wool, so they've got some quality there, particularly Cameron and Hawkins in attack. So Geelong is going to be able to, you think, and they've won back-to-back matches for the first time, I think, for a long time, having won last weekend. So they're still a good side. I know you put the age bracket on them and they're gone for as contenders this year, but they're still a team to be reckoned with at their best.
The return of Reece Stanley is important, coming up against probably he missed some time, but Tim English.
Massive.
I think he's the best ruckman in the comp. Jared Witts is in that conversation as well. I know you don't like that one.
No, hang on a second. I just want to back up the truck. You're saying Tim English is ahead of Max Gawn? Absolutely.
And Jared Witts is. Max Gawn does what he does, mate, but he's playing in a very good team in Melbourne. And he plonks himself behind the ball and he gets his marks. But I don't think Max is having his best year that he's had in the AFL at the moment. I think Tim English is. He's outstanding.
Hasn't played for 5 weeks. It was his first game back.
Outstanding.
Hasn't played for a month, Scully. I mean, how can you be playing your best footy when you're either ill or you're injured?
We love the West Australian boys here on the Shelter FootyCast. He's bloody beautiful. And that hair, we should be both jealous of that. I'll tell you about that. Who wins this?
I've gone for the Western Bulldogs.
Yep, I'm matching you with that. I think the Bulldogs win in a close one. Gold Coast v North, TIO Stadium. They're in the Northern Territory.
Yeah, so do the Suns fly back to the Gold Coast or they stay there for the week? That's a question I don't know the answer to.
They would have had to have stayed there. You can't be flying back for 3 days, can you?
And Darwin to the Gold Coast is no
correct.
No Melbourne-Sydney type scenario. So, yeah, TIO Stadium.
It's a day game. It's not a night. Usually a night game when they're in the Northern Territory. So it's
dewy.
Yeah, it should be a bit drier.
Yes, but either way, whatever we saw last week against Hawthorn, the Gold Coast Suns will feel pretty comfortable going back to that same venue. We know that they're unlikely to make too many changes, and they take on a North side, which, as we said, pretty similar to what's occurring at the Eagles. Their form levels are poor. Their skill is down. They've got some injuries still to contend with.
Cam Zerha is one of their best players, and he's out. He's out with a hot spot in the foot, which is
long term.
Oscar Allen as rings bells there. That's what that is. It's a stress fracture in the foot, so I wouldn't be too confident with that. Gold Coast won't make any changes after that Hawthorn game. They were outstanding. They've had a great month of footy, the Gold Coast Suns, and they're really challenging to play finals. To wrap this one up pretty quickly, I think they beat North and beat them well.
Yeah, they win by 7+ goals. I mean, if you're going to be considered a top 8 contender, although it's going to be tough to break in, the Suns have to beat North convincingly up there. I think they will. Could be a 10, 11 goal victory if they get themselves rolling.
Oh, boy, that's a big win. Big win.
Well, considering what North's average losing margin is, it's about regulation.
Very good. Melbourne v Sydney, MCG, 5:25. Another big game this weekend. Melbourne, Sydney. Again, I think Sydney's really challenging for that top 4 spot. This is another great matchup.
Mate, after I do the waffle on Saturday, the Nat Fyfe return game, I might just get home.
I'll be with you on that, by the way.
You will indeed. Yes. Hopefully dress a little more... a little bit more eloquently than you are.
A little bit more like Mark Reddings.
No, you've got everything, even the slippers on. Bit of Hugh Hefner look this morning here on the shelter.
Hugh Hefner and Mark Reddings.
But just going back to Saturday afternoon, getting it home about 5:15, 5:20. I've told the wife, I want to sit down and watch the footy and have a shelter and maybe a dark drink after that just to get me through the night. But I'm looking forward to this one, Melbourne, Sydney. And but just because Melbourne's lost one, doesn't automatically mean, in my mind, after winning 17 straight, that they're guaranteed to bounce back and just blow Sydney out of the water. Some teams that have been up for a long time, they have that little drop.
Cooling off period.
Yeah, it might not just be an automatic bounce back. What are your thoughts?
Yeah, I mean, it's a good call. I mean, people have been sort of saying last week Melbourne were missing some players. Ed Langdon missed, who's a very important part in that team. Stephen May gets injured in the first quarter. They're missing Tom McDonald. Those guys will return, not Stephen May. He'll be replaced by Adam Tomlinson. He's been playing very well in the VFL. Tom McDonald comes back. He's an important part in their forward line, and Ed Langdon returns as well. And Christian Salem.
Good player.
He's been out for a long time. People forget how good he is and how important he is to Melbourne. He returns this week. So to answer your question, I agree with you. I don't think it's necessarily a very quick bounce back. It's going to be a bloody good game. I think Melbourne, I would have picked Sydney with Lance Franklin, but he's, of course, out for a open-handed palm.
Well, it was deemed a strike, and obviously Trent Cotchin was accused of a bit of Logie Award action.
In the actual tribunal, Lance Franklin's lawyer said Trent Cotchin may be awarded a Logie for his actions out in the field. Yeah, not bad material.
It's a fair sledge for Trent Cotchin. End of the day, Buddy deserved a week. I mean, if Switkowski's getting 2 for the chicken wing, which is a different action.
Yeah, but it's the optics. It's probably
it's
similar.
Optics.
Yes.
It's optics.
Yeah.
And look, Switkowski didn't injure the bloke, nor did Buddy.
Yep.
Anyway, all of the above, you just can't have that look. And as Buddy said, he would never strike Trent Cotchin high. Well, the optics were that he did. And then the force is arguable, but I don't think anyone...
It's like Donald Trump saying he won the election.
Yeah,
well, you didn't. So, unfortunately...
How's Buddy? He couldn't hold the tribunal on the night reserved normally, which is a Tuesday, because his lawyer was unavailable. I'm not sure if he was part of the Johnny Depp Amber Heard case and just had to fly across back to the...
Have you been following along with that? Have you escaped?
I have. Johnny Depp's had a little result there. $15 million Amber owes him. So, interesting. Don't know the ins and outs, just following it from afar. But given I've got daughters who follow social media and a wife that's very much more interested than what we talk about, then, I'm across some of that.
Well, I'm sure she tuned into the Shelter FootyCast now. There's the update on the Amber Heard Johnny Depp situation.
Who are we tipping, by the way?
Melbourne.
Yeah, I think the D's.
I'd love to pick Sydney.
I think their form against Melbourne.
Hey, I'm going to go Sydney.
Yeah.
Thanks, Kate. There we go.
Yeah, right. Take a risk. I love it. That's nice. So Sydney to beat Melbourne at the MCG. Tom Hickey, by the way, could return. If he does, that's one to put in your back pocket as a plus.
Okay, all right. I'm a bit scared about that, but let's do it. Hawthorn v Collingwood, and I think another big game. Like they're two very, strong sides competing for that. Probably bottom 2 spots in the 8 or 7th, 8th, somewhere there.
Not saying Hawthorn. I don't think Hawthorn's inconsistency for me not enough to suggest that they're top 8 contenders.
They haven't had a ruckman scheme.
No, but that's...
They have not had a ruckman. They played Frost in the ruck last week and he misses this week. They could get some returns in that area. Max Lynch, potential to return. Ned Reeves, who hurt his shoulder a month ago, he could return. That's a big part of your team. They were able to win without one, but they get one back to play against Darcy Cameron, a WA boy who plays for Collingwood, who's playing in the ruck instead of Brodie Grundy. You might want to write them off. But
no, not writing them off. I think they're a chance in this game because Collingwood, as good as they were against, say, the Dockers a couple of weeks ago, Carlton, they held on and upset one of the form teams of the competition. But, yeah, I think this is a game that Hawthorn, with their form patterns this year, after a couple of bad ones, Sam Mitchell's had the ability to bring them back. So they will win games between now and the end of the season. But
will they win this one?
I'm just going to go with Collingwood. I just think I can trust them a bit more at the moment than I can Hawthorn.
Okay. I mean, Collingwood aren't going to make any changes more than likely after that Carlton game. I want to pick...
Show some bravery.
Oh, shut up. I'm the only brave one on here. You have just been
Brisbane.
You've been plain Jane. You've been straight up and down since we got here. Julius Marlowe's slacks.
I'm conservative. I'm a Catholic. What more can I say?
I'm going to go Collingwood. I'm going to go Collingwood at the MCG. And that's the last game of the round.
So what do we do for the rest of the weekend apart from twiddle our thumbs? It's
how's the last
Carlton,
game?
Essendon, the Giants, Port, Richmond, St Kilda, all having a breather.
Who needs the break more out of those teams? Carlton, Essendon, GWS, Port, Richmond, St Kilda. They're all kind of interesting teams.
Yeah, Essendon needs it to conduct their mid-season review on what's gone wrong there.
A lot.
Let's go through the Giants. Well, they're just trying to get their house in order as well.
Yep.
Carlton, I don't think that'll hurt them at all. Just to freshen their bull up in Paddy Cripps and maybe make sure Charlie Curnow and Harry Mackay.
It's probably coming a good time for them.
And they're the team, let's be honest, I mean, that are going to be top 4 contenders. St Kilda, they're the team that's just snuck under the radar, haven't they?
Yeah, they've been building nicely. I think they'd probably like to keep playing. They've been in good form. When you're in that as a team,
momentum.
Sometimes, you want to keep it rolling. So I think, maybe they would have liked the round 14 bye instead. And Richmond, probably similar. I mean, Richmond are a tough one this year. I don't know where to put them.
I think they're going to go back to their position before they became an AFL powerhouse as ninthman.
Oh.
Yeah, I think they're going to be just
Ninthman.
missing. I think they're just going to be missing. And look, they're good players are still elite. I mean, as you know, Shea Bolton, my favourite, Dusty's what he is. They should have beaten Sydney. They beat Sydney. Their whole maybe back half of the year looks a bit different, but they're still a very, very good side. And put it this way, if they get into the finals, I don't think they can win the flag, but they are still an awesome side on their day.
All right, that's it. What's the match of the round out of those? I think it's out of Brisbane, Freo, the Friday night match, Bulldogs, Geelong, and
Melbourne, Sydney's worth a look as well. So there's 3 really good ones. I think Fremantle and Brisbane deserves pretty much the top billing. Given what we think about Brisbane and how they've played for most of the year, Fremantle, you can't come off any much more of a high than defeating the reigning premiers. No. So, look, that to me is the number one, although it's been buried at 3:20 on a Sunday afternoon.
There you have it. There's the tips. There's the preview for round 12 here on the Shelter FootyCast. Thank you, Dan. I appreciate that. A little bit slow on the button there. I like that. Now, let's get into this. This is something that I really enjoyed last week. A bit of pardon the interruption, a bit of back and forth on a few issues in the AFL going around this week. You'll take a yes or no, affirmative or negative on one, and I'll try and beat you on the other. Fremantle, here's the first one. Fremantle should pursue Taylor Walker in the trade period.
No, it's a pretty strong no from me. I don't see... I mean, short-term, the sugar fix... Perhaps, but are they talking to win a flag with Taylor Walker? If that's what they're thinking, I think that's the wrong mentality. I think you've got to keep developing as they have. They've got Jai Amos, who is far from a Taylor Walker and might be years away from even becoming a regular big game player. But he's waiting in the wings. They've got Taberner still there. They've still got Josh Tracy, who you just said is a forward to be reckoned with in the next 2 or 3 years. I think Taylor Walker, 32 years of age or thereabouts, playing good footy. But I wouldn't be bending over backwards to get text to Perth.
I know I spoke about it earlier in the podcast, but I was just putting the positive spin on for Fremantle Dockers. Taylor Walker, imagine him running around in purple, put him at centre half forward, put him at full forward alongside Taberner. Taberner's screaming out for someone to take the best defender off him. Now, Rory Lobb's putting together a great season. You can't deny that. But he's gone at the end of this year, Freo Dockers. I reckon he's straight out of the door, no matter how well you go. Josh Tracy, yes, he's a good developing forward, but he's not quite there yet. They don't have anyone else. This kid from East Perth, who's just been picked up in the mid-season draft,
Seb Quick,
he ain't stepping up anytime soon. You're going to have to go and find someone. And Taylor Walker's right at the top of that tree, and I think he's the man.
He's the tail end of his career, though, isn't he?
Yeah, but that's okay. Fremantle are back in the window. The Freo doctor is flowing through the premiership window very fast at the moment, and it's time. Add someone, and Taylor Walker's your man.
It doesn't fit in with the process or the plan that we've seen over the past 3 or 4 years, which is draft, bring in youth, develop. And you're saying use this as the final piece in the puzzle almost to give them that forward line structure, which will turn them into a team that sometimes kicks 4 or 5 goals a game or 6 or 7 goals a game to, double figures every week.
Back line tick, midfield tick, forward line got a question mark. You got to find someone, and
True.
Taylor Walker's up the top. Hey, don't let me.
No, I'm saying no.
Okay, good. West Coast here's number 2. West Coast should start throwing the magnets around to see what they have got.
When you say throwing the magnets around, I say yes, in part, because what we need to see a little bit more, during the pre-season, we saw Tom Barrass play as a forward for a couple of matches. Now, we're not to say that he's going to be a change in the fortunes for West Coast because they haven't had inside 50 entries, but I think fans and most people would like to see if there's anything that can be done with the current group, and we're not talking about pushing Josh Kennedy from full forward to full back, but is it Tom Barrass? Can he go forward? Can he play as an attacking player? Greg Clark, I saw on the wing on the weekend, I thought he was recruited as an inside mid. I mean, just a couple of things. Now, I just wonder whether, A, they don't have the flexibility to do that. I'd like to see, and I think fans would like to see, just try a couple more things than what are being put on the table at the moment.
I disagree. I think it's nuffy talk saying throw the magnets around. I've heard Jack Darling into the midfield. You've heard that too. I've heard Josh Kennedy into the ruck. I've heard Tom Barrass into the forward line. You might want to say that, but he is not a forward. He is a key back. You play blokes where they play. You play them in their positions. Maybe some young blokes you can throw around. I'll take that on board. But people want to see drastic changes at West Coast, and their solution is to throw the magnets around and try blokes in different positions, see if blokes can play elsewhere. You spend long enough in pre-season as a player, you know where you're going to play. And throwing those around, it completely throws you out. I would say West Coast would be a worse team if they started doing that. I think the last thing in the world they need to do is start throwing magnets around on the board.
Yeah, and the players you mentioned, I'm trying to disagree with you here, but those players, Shannon Hearn, Josh Kennedy.
Let's put Shannon Hearn forward. Come on.
Yeah.
Come on.
I mean, there's
Josh Kennedy to the back line. If Josh Kennedy played in the back line, someone would kick 20 goals. Someone would, and it'd be Josh Kennedy's opponent.
well, his opponent kicked 2 on him last week, didn't he?
He was playing in the forward line.
There you go. Look, my point is, yes, just change it up a fraction. Not saying we have to throw the magnets because, quite frankly, they don't have the stock or the talent to be so imaginative, I don't think.
Sounds like they don't have the knackers. All right, last one. Fifey. Nathan Fyfe should play in the waffle this week and not the AFL.
Far be it from me to disagree with Wayne Carey and someone like yourself, but what is the issue with him playing 50, 60 minutes, 90 minutes?
90 minutes.
In the waffle. I mean, it's good enough for Dom Shee, good enough for Elliot Yeo. It's been good enough for Nick Nat Nui. Why is there such a protective seal around Nat Fyfe, according to some?
Well, what's the difference between him playing 90 minutes in the waffle and 90 minutes at AFL?
My point is, if this is going to help him in his fitness levels to get back to, I mean, you know what it's like. You can play match sim or have match sim for 2 or 3 weeks, 3 or 4 weeks, but surely getting some time out in the middle against opposition, if he's back, it's a back injury. It's not like he's coming off a hammy or a calf or this is a back surgery.
I'll tell you why Wayne Carey comes out and says it, because Wayne Carey sees Nat Fyfe in himself. He's the big dog. He's the king. He's the captain. He's a 2-time Brownlow medalist. You don't put your Ferrari out in the farm paddock towing around trailers.
So what are the Eagles?
Mucking up the cow shit.
So why have the Eagles done it?
Because this year with Sheed and Yo?
They've done it with Sheed, Yo. They've done it
because they're losing, Ski. Because they are losing. They're a terrible team. There's rush them back into a shocking team. Absolutely not. Nat Fyfe comes back into Freo, into the AFL team, because they're winning.
But why do you rush him into a side that is already playing good football? And I would have thought that's a luxury you have to make sure he is at the top of his game when he returns, as opposed to, the argument, now I'm not sure if you agree with this, to put Nat Fyfe back in the AFL side and play him just as a forward for 50, 60 minutes.
Now we're talking, Skate. That's exactly what I wanted to see. There's blokes on that list playing 50 or 60 minutes now. David Mundy played that sort of time. Will Brodie's been struggling. You're not going to play him as a midfielder because he takes Will Brodie out of there, who's in their top 3 in the best and fairest right now.
Why won't he play in the midfield when he comes back?
Put him in the fort because they're too good in there. Who are you going to drop? You're going to drop Sarong,
Will Brodie. You don't have to drop someone. It's a rotation.
You drop him out of the midfield. Will Brodie goes and plays at forward pocket if Nat Fyfe plays in the midfield. You can't tell me that's a good move for the Freo Dockers.
Surely Nat Fyfe plays a bit forward and a bit of the midfield. Anyway, when he comes back, look.
I can't believe he's playing in the waffle.
Let's be honest, it's only going to be one game.
I can't believe he's playing in the Waffle.
Why?
I just can't believe it. He's the king, mate. Just get him out in the AFL. You and I will call that game, though, on Channel 7.
Yeah.
So Shelter FootyCast, they're taking over 6PR on Sports Day. We've been doing that this week. Taking over Channel 7. We might just put a bit of product placement on Channel 7 there, I think.
I'll tell you what, it'll be, I had to do the opener for that Waffle, and I did mention that every mark, every kick, every move he makes, we'll be watching Fifey.
Okay, I got two. Every move you make. All right. So, fan questions. I've got two of them. Let's get through them quickly because we're going to wrap this up. Gordo the Lordo. We appreciate it, Gordo. G'day, boys. You like that, Skate? Good pod. Good to hear you back on the pod waves, Skeeter. Very good.
Yeah, that's good.
Always hearing rumbles of bad leadership trickling down at the West Coast Eagles over the last 18 months. Is there something systematically wrong at the Eagles, or is what's happening a result of a series of unfortunate events, or both? Appreciate your insights, Gordo the Lordo.
Well, given your contacts at the club, more so than I. I would suggest that losing brings out every possible rumour, every possible piece of scuttlebutt there is. And we know that because when you're winning, you just don't hear these types of discussions or accusations.
Winning fixes everything, and sometimes it does patch over cracks. If there is cracks appearing, and then when you start losing, they start opening up. Look, I think it's been, to answer the question, I think it's been a culmination of a lot of events. Some list management, some leadership, some injury, COVID, the Jack Darling situation. They've had a lot of different items come up.
Brad Shepherd pre-season having to retire.
Yep, we've had people retire. Even Daniel Venables, that sort of stuff. They were chasing the flag, trade stuff around Tim Kelly and others. They don't have the youth coming back in. You don't play your younger players as much while you're trying to win games of football. Freo Dockers and West Coast finished first and second in 2015. Since that moment, Freo don't play finals. West Coast make a grand final in 15, win one in 18, continue to chase, and now they are where they are. That's just how footy goes. You can't be good all the time. That's it. I don't want to hear any more from you, Skate. James from Mount Hawthorn, Eagles coach is the subject. Hi, Scully and Skeeter. If the Eagles keep playing like this, is there any possibility we keep Simo as a coach? How do we navigate the soft cap if we part ways?
Well, he's contracted until 2024.
Yeah, he's got a big long-term deal.
Yeah, look, I'm not jumping into that just yet. No, I think at the end of next year, if there's not some sharp improvement, and presumably with a fitter list and things working out better for the club, I think at the end of next year, if they're in wooden spoon territory again, there's going to be a lot of heat, and justifiably so. But I think, and everyone says, he's won a premiership, so therefore he's untouchable. No, not at all. I think he deserves scrutiny for the team's performance at the moment. But you've also got to look at what's available. I think you have to be realistic. And I think most footy supporters will agree that with a full list, but also a rebuild of sorts, West Coast can turn things around a bit quicker than some are saying 5-6 years. I'm not buying that.
No, neither am I. I've been really impressed with Adam Simpson's, I think, strong leadership in the media over probably the last month. He's under a lot of pressure. The club's not playing well, and he's the front man, and he hasn't really wavered from his messaging. It hasn't been an up and down messaging. They're not doing too much differently. We're going to keep the process going. That's what you need when you're not going well. You need clarity. You need someone strong at the front, and that's what Adam Simpson's doing. I think he's fine in terms of job security. That's it. Done and dusted for the Shelter FootyCast. A bit of a reminder, we need your footy stories from the country leagues and the regional leagues. Keep your eyes open over the weekend for some of those. You can submit them via our socials, which is Shelter FootyCast. There's a link at the top of that page. You can find us over at BackChat. There's a link in the top of that page as well. Or you can jump directly onto the Shelter website and find it through their link. You go on the homepage, through beers, through Shelter FootyCast, and there's a form there for you. Find us on YouTube. If you haven't watched us, if you haven't listened to us, you can follow us all over podcast land. There's an event down at the Wembley Hotel. Shelter are releasing their Switchback IPL launch. I'm going to say that 20 times once I've had 10 of them down there at the Wembley Hotel. You won't see Skeet there. You'll see me, but I'll have your credit card, Skeet, so it'll be beers on the house.
Very nice, of course. Torres Butchers, the meat raffle, Friday night footy, the Bulldogs, the Cats, free entry, and of course, we want you to get down there and support what's a magnificent product.
Very good. See you next week.